Hey, welcome everyone. This is Mike from ZoZoStockWatch.com, and this is going to be your Let's Get Ready for the week ahead, January 7th through January 11th. What a wonderful day for the markets on Friday that passed. The stock market soared on Friday. The Dow Jones was up 744 points. The S&P 500 was up 84 points, and the Nasdaq was up 275 points. It was the second weekly close higher for the markets, and then the first week of the new year is in the books. We had a shortened week with the holiday, and next week we go to a full trading week. Bulls ruled the day on Friday from the opening to closing bell. We did have some economics that helped with the move up. We had the PMI services index that came out on Friday. They were expecting 53.5, and actually the number came in at 54.4, so a very strong number there. The non-farm payrolls came out, and they were expecting 177,000. Actually, we came in with 312 jobs for the past month. And then Fed Chairman Jerome Powell spoke on Friday, and the market liked what it heard from Jerome Powell. Taking a look at the heat map, courtesy of FinViz, we had Google jumping 5%, Facebook almost 5%, Microsoft same thing, almost up 5%. We had Amazon jumping 5%. So a lot of big moves here. Even the banks got some nice buying in them. JP Morgan up almost 4% on the day. Bank America gaining 4% for the day. As you can see from the heat map here, pretty much mostly green for the day. A big move up, as you can imagine, with the markets moving up on those points that I gave you. The Dow up 744, S&P 84, and the Nasdaq up 275. Now, one thing to point out, now did bounce from very oversold conditions. The Fear and Greed Index, courtesy of CNN Business. We had a two-handle down on this Fear and Greed Index, and we finally got that oversold pop in the markets, which can happen in bear markets. So the markets really got going when the Fed Powell came out. He was at a conference with Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke. Powell said the Fed wouldn't hesitate to tweak the balance sheet reduction if it was causing problems. That was some of the comments that came out from Jerome Powell. And basically, Powell said he will quickly shift policy if global growth slows. We will not hesitate to tweak the balance sheet reduction. We'll watch the economy and be patient with our policy. Will not resign if asked. So that was some comments coming out from Jerome Powell on Friday, and the market really liked what it heard and just pushed the markets up very strong. Like I said, bulls were in control on Friday from the opening to the closing bell, and with the jobs data that came out and the PMI services, that's all the market needed for a bull rally and in a bear market, and shorts to cover some of their positions. As you can see here by our weekly sector performance, we had the S&P 500. You can see the big moves in some of the sectors. Now, some of the sectors that did have red, we had the real estate sector, which are high dividend sector, and the utility sector were red for the week. But you see the performance here. The biggest, the energy sector, was up almost 5% for the week on the energy sector, followed by the consumer services, and then the financials, the XLF. So good week across the board in those sectors. So let's go ahead and take a look at some other sectors in the market. We had JNUG up 18% for the week. We had Nugget up 10% for the week. Both of these are involved with the gold ETFs. IBB was up 8% for the week. We did have a nice merger going on there between Bristol Myers and Celgene, so that lit up the biotech stocks. The MJ was up over 7%. This is the ETF for cannabis for the week was up over 7%. The OIH, the oil services sector, was up almost 8% for the week. Such names as Schlumberger, RIG, RIG symbol there, Halliburton are some of the oil services sector. Oil USO for the week was up almost 7% for the week, and WTI oil was up almost 6% for the week. As you can see, we did have some nice gains in most of the sectors. The things that were red were the things you want to see red. Volatility started to come out of the market a little bit. We had the VIX dropping this week. The bond yields were dropping this week. SMH actually ended up the week red. We want to see that turn around a little bit stronger there in the SMH. The IYR, which is the real estate, was down a slight percentage there on the IYR. The dollar was down slightly also. Some of your top Dow stocks for the week. We had Goldman Sachs, ExxonMobil, JP Morgan, IBM up almost 4% for the week. We also had American Express jumping over 3% for the week. Some that didn't fare so well. We had Apple down over 5% for the week. We'll get more into that. And then we had UNH, United Health Group, that was down almost 3% for the week. So let's go ahead and look at some of the sectors. One of the stronger sector was the IBB. Like I said, we had that merger between Bristol Myers and Celgene, so the biotech stocks got a big jump. We are coming up to the 50 SMA on the IBB here. You see this trend line from the past highs here. So we have a trend line that we might get up to here around that. We'll call it 105 area for the IBB, so that might be a resistance area. Currently we're at the 50 SMA. As far as oil and USO, nice bounce, nice recovery from oversold conditions. We did get up over that 10 spot on the USO. For oil itself, the light sweet crude oil, we have that $50 number up ahead per barrel, so that will be closely watched. Could be a big resistance area. You can see here all this battling that went on here at around that $50 area. So that's going to be a big test as oil turns up and moves up into that $50 spot. Some other areas that we will look at, we had the IWM, a nice bounce here. This is what led us down on that break back of that 145 on the IWM, and we've bounced from about 125 up to about 137. We are trying to clear the 20 SMA here on the IWM. So the next possible spot is round number, maybe 140 area for the IWM. And then if we do get above that 140, folks will be looking and watching the reaction as we get up near the 50 SMA coming up from the bottom on the IWM. As far as the SPY, we'll take a look at that. Nice bounce, good continuation move for the bulls. We are above the fast moving averages. We are above the 13, the 10, and the 5 here. We are coming up to the 20 SMA for the SPY, which is currently at 253.78. So we'll call it 254. For the 20 SMA, that 254 area might be a tough spot. Now, if we do get through this 254, we had the breakdown around this 260 area, so that'll be closely watched too, as support can become resistance. This was the breakdown, this 260 spot, so we'll see if we can bounce back up to that 260 spot on the spot. We'll also take a look at the S&P 500 cash. We have that 2550 area up ahead, and also the 20 SMA. And then as you can see here, 2600 area was a support area. When we broke down through that, we got that big flush down. Now we're trying to get back above the 20 SMA and that 2550 area, and then we'll see what the reaction is going to be here at this 2600 spot on the SPY. If we go ahead and look at the SPY on the weekly, as we noted in previous videos, we were coming down to that 200 SMA on the weekly chart. That's exactly where they bounced us off of on the S&P 500, and a nice continuation move. Now, this was a shortened week this week. Next week will be a full week. We had the holiday this week, but we did get down to that 20% correction zone, and now folks are going to be watching that breakdown level of 2600. That was our 10% drop from the highs here. So we'll see what the reaction is going to be for that in the S&P 500. So let's go ahead and take a look at some things that we should be prepared for the week ahead. We do have some earnings coming up this week, and here's your economic information that is due out next week, courtesy of the Trade Exchange, a nice calendar that they put together January 7th through January 11th. So on Monday, we have the ISM non-manufacturing index. We have factory orders coming out this coming Monday. We do get some more Fed speak throughout the week this week. Also, we have the FOMC minutes that will be coming out on Wednesday. So there's your information for this coming week, courtesy of the Trade Exchange. Lots of Fed speak going on. Some things we have to be watching also this week. We will have the Fed minutes, like I noted, on Wednesday. Also, trade talks will be going on this week. Trade talks to resume trade talks on January 7th through the 8th as the two sides look to end the dispute. So that'll be on our plate for this week ahead. U.S. inflation data. Brexit is still on the table. So starting January 14th, there'll be a debate which is scheduled to begin in the coming week. So that's on Brexit. This week we get the Bank of Canada rate decision. So that's some economic highlights for the week ahead coming up. Don't forget, we also have to add into the mix political statements that come out. President Trump tweeting over the weekend, drug makers and companies are not living up to their commitments on pricing, not being fair to the consumer or to our country. This coming out over this weekend, so keep your eye on biotech stocks. Some stocks that will be reporting earnings this week for the week ahead. Some small companies reporting on Tuesday before the open and after the close on Tuesday. Wednesday, we get some home builders. Lennar will be reporting. LEN is the symbol there. Also, we get Bed Bath & Beyond after the bell on after the close on Wednesday. KB Homes, KBH symbol there, will be reporting earnings. So this is your big earnings day. Wednesday, WD-40 will be reporting. Also, Constellation Brands will be reporting before the bell on Wednesday. STZ is the symbol there. Plug Power, PLUG, will be reporting their earnings before the bell on Wednesday this week. These earnings courtesy of Earnings Whisper. Some things to make note of that'll be coming up in January. We do get an FOMC meeting for 2019 on the 29th and the 30th, and then in March on the 19th and the 20th. So that's when they'll decide if they're going to raise interest rates or not on towards the end of January, and then about middle of March. So some comments coming out this week. Trump will win the trade war with China, says Gary Schilling. So this comments being made this week that also pushed up the markets. Trump says he's not concerned about Apple because it builds its products in China. We'll get more into Apple in a moment. Wall Street bankers don't think Apple will buy anything big, but here's what they'd recommend. Some more. This was the big mover this week. Apple at one point was down 10% for the week. It did bounce back and ended up the week down 5%. Some companies that are being mentioned in this article: Salesforce, CRM, also Disney as a possible takeover, and Tesla, TSLA, mentioned in the article. It's a dark day for Apple, says analyst Dan Ives. So some comments coming out on Apple all this week. Was a big market mover this week. And then finally, this is also hanging over the market. A potential Trump impeachment is a huge risk for 2019, as expert says, that coming from courtesy of CNBC. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of your best stocks, performing stocks for this week. We have Netflix first up. Netflix jumping over 16% for the week. Goldman Sachs added it to its conviction buy list at Goldman Sachs. So that was one of the reasons why Netflix was jumping this week. Another stock that had a very good week was General Electric, believe it or not. GE bouncing up over 13% for the week. Celgene with that buyout offer from Bristol Myers had a very good week, jumped up. Gilead in sympathy to the Celgene buyout offer was up this week on GILD. GME, GameStop, this stock jumped on possible buyout on GME, so this stock was up 25%. The OIH itself had a very good week, up almost 9% for the week. We had names in the oil sector also moving up. APA, DO was moving up. OAS had a good week. APC, RIG, and that was having a good week this week, up almost 14% for the week. First Solar was up. SLR, First Solar, bouncing this week, up 10% for the week. I believe it was Goldman Sachs came out with positive comments on First Solar. CSIQ also jumped this week in sympathy to First Solar. We had some of the steel stocks getting a nice move this week. US Steel, AKS, CLF, STLD, ZEUS all jumped this week. Nice percentage gains in all those stocks this week. Alcoa had a very nice week this week, up over 4%. CENX, which is another aluminum play, up 14% for the week. We had AMD jumping this week, up almost 9% for the week. Workday had a very nice week, up over 3% for the week. SPLK making a nice move, 5% for the week. EA, also Electronic Arts, finally coming up off the bottom here, up 6% for the week. Biotech stock, PRAN, PRAN, was up 52% for the week. The story here is privately held Life Biosciences is making an initial investment of $7.5 million into PRAN. KTOV, they got a distribution agreement with Coeptis Pharmaceutical, so KTOV jumped 65% for the week. NVAX, phase 2 data came out, so this stock jumped 14% for the week. VRCA, 2 phase 3 trials met the primary endpoints on VRCA. Now that stock jumping 19% for the week. EPZM, this one seeking accelerated approval with the FDA on EPZM. Stock jumped almost 40% for the week. NBRV, FDA has accepted new drug application and granted priority review for this NBRV, and stock jumped 42% for the week. PTLA, FDA approval allowing for broad commercial launch in the USA on PTLA. Stock jumped almost 20%. HRTX, FDA accepted new drug application for HRTX Henron Therapeutics, and that stock jumped almost 11% for the week. Some of the worst stocks for the week, and we'll start out with Apple. Apple earlier in the week cut its Q1 revenue guidance over sales weak in China. So Apple dropped 5%. Like I said, at one point it was down 10% on the day. They did bounce it back, so ended up the week down 5% on Apple. BMY doing a cash and stock deal for Celgene, as you can see here, was down 7% for the week. CRUS, one of the suppliers to Apple, was down 5% for the week. SWKS was also down 6%, another Apple supplier. AVGO had a bad week this week, down 7% for the week. TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, down 5% for the week. DECK did not have a good week, down almost 7% for the week. GNMX, they did not meet the primary endpoints for its phase 2, and this stock dropped 70% for the week, dropped 34% this week. They released phase 3 data for this company, and that stock dropped 34% for the week. UXIN, a China stock, down almost 50% for the week, down 45% UXIN. And then we also had WTW. That stock was down 14%. Weight Watchers down 14% for the week. So that's some of your worst stocks for the week. So to me, what I got from this week was that basically the Fed capitulated this week. The Fed is a confidence builder, and the market wants the Fed basically to create a floor under the market and take away some of that uncertainty. Uncertainty is what the worst thing for the markets. The Fed walked back some of the statement that was going around. So basically, I would say the Fed capitulated this week, and the markets jumped on that. So going into the week ahead, we're not saying that we're out of the woods yet. If we can get this deal pushed through with China, if Trump can get his wall built, we do have the government that is still shut down. So a big debate going on in Washington over that. Who's going to pay for the wall? And as I say, the government is still remains shut in the United States. Trade war meetings will be going on. And then earnings season kind of begins this week, but really gets going in the following week. We'll get more into that in future videos. For the VIX, some fear came out of the market. Closing for this video, and like I said, I'll be back with another video later on, some stocks that I'll be watching, but I'm going to be watching the lows that were made on Friday, that 247.17. If we can hold these lows for the next few days, if we can consolidate in here, that would be good for the bulls. If we start losing, the lows from Friday and then the lows from Thursday, obviously that would be a bad reaction for the bulls, but that's going to depend on the data coming out this week and how the climate is for the trade wars. Now, to the resistance side, first step is to get up through this 20 SMA on the SPY, which is 253.78. Like we said, that's around that 254 area. If we can clear that and bulls can get us up above or near this 260, maybe consolidate under that and then make another move up to get up over the 50 SMA. But as you can see, there's a lot of work to do. This is a beginning spot for the bulls. We do get these big jumps. This was the day the market was up that 1,000 points. You do get big jumps in bear markets now. This is not a pretty chart by any means right now, but it has to start somewhere, and the bulls need to hold these gains to gain traction to the upside. And that's going to depend on if we start getting some conclusions out of all these headlines that have been coming up: Brexit, the China wars, the government shutdown, and so on and so forth. All right, so this is Mike. This is your Let's Get Ready for the Week Ahead from ZoZoStockWatch.com. Hope you're more ready for the week ahead than you were before, and we'll be back at you with another video.